Have you ever wondered why in some families generation after generation live happily and peacefully, while in others tragedies happen again and again? The same illnesses, the same accidents, the same misfortunes. People say, "This is a curse," or "Such is the fate of our family." But Edgar Cayce, the most mysterious mystic of America, claimed, "This is not a curse and not a coincidence. This is family karma, that very invisible chain that binds the living and the dead." Cayce said, "A person is not born alone. He comes into the world together with the debts and lessons of his family line. And if someone once failed to walk their path, then part of their burden passes on. Thus, illnesses, tragic deaths, divorces, poverty repeat. We think it is just coincidence, but in reality, it is a chain carried by generations. One man told that in his family, 3 men in a row died of heart attacks: grandfather, father, and brother. He feared the same awaited him. In one of his readings, Cayce said, "You carry within you not only your father's blood, but also his fears, his unfinished lessons, and until they are recognized, the chain will not break." It is frightening to realize we may repeat a destiny not because it is our choice, but because someone before us did not take the right step. If you think about it, we often see such stories around us. Families where generation after generation men become alcoholics, dynasties in which marriages fall apart with identical scandals, women who seem to repeat the very same illnesses of their mothers and grandmothers. All this resembles a closed circle from which it is impossible to escape. But Cayce said, "This is not punishment, this is a lesson." We receive a chance to correct what was not corrected earlier, and that is why misfortunes repeat again and again. If once in a family there was betrayal, infidelity, or cruelty, then the next generation gets the opportunity to pass through the same situation, but in a different way, to forgive, to refrain from malice, to act honestly. And if the lesson is learned, the chain breaks. Think about it. How many people live someone else's destiny without even realizing it? A young woman marries a man who beats her, just as once her father beat her mother. A son quits his job and drowns in drink, just as his grandfather did. A daughter dies from the same illness as her grandmother. We say, coincidence, heredity. But Cayce claimed this is not only genes, this is energy. And until it is changed, it will flow in our lives just as it flowed in our ancestors. In one of his readings, he told a woman, "You carry your mother's sorrow. You repeat her tears. But this is not your destiny if you choose otherwise." It sounds simple, but it means that each of us can stop an entire chain of misfortunes. It is terrifying to imagine, but if we change nothing, then darkness accumulates. Each generation adds its pain, its anger, its resentment, and this becomes a heavy burden that lies upon the children and grandchildren. Cayce said, "Every unforgiven resentment returns. Every tear shed with hatred remains in the family line." Perhaps that is exactly why we see families that seem doomed to suffer. Their children are born sick. Their homes fall apart. Their destinies intertwine with tragedies. People say, "God has punished us." But Cayce said differently. This is not punishment. This is a chance. Until the lesson is learned, it returns. Think how many times you have heard, "In our family all the men die young," or "The women in our family are never happy in marriage," or "All of us die from the same illness." These are not just words. These are programs passed on further because no one stopped them. Cayce warned, if we do not break this chain, then we ourselves will pass it to our children. Imagine, you carry not only your own mistakes, but also others. And if you do not correct them, then your children will suffer the same way you did. This sounds frightening, but within it lies hope. Everything can be changed. One man told that in his family, men always abandoned their families. He feared he would repeat this. And when he had a son, he came to Cayce with the question, "What must I do not to leave as my father did?" Cayce answered, "Stay. That is your choice. You will break the chain by doing what he did not." This is exactly how family karma works. We get the chance to live through the same situation, but in a new way. Each of our actions becomes not only our destiny, but the destiny of the entire family line. Now ask yourself, what if the misfortunes of your family are not fate, not coincidence, but a call of ancestors who wait for you to take the step and break the chain? What if you are the very one who must stop the repetition of tragedies? Cayce said that everything begins with thoughts. We think that karma is something vast and distant, but it is born in simple actions and words. If in a family generation after generation, anger and resentment are repeated, then the energy of these feelings becomes stronger than any illness. It is like a knot that tightens more and more. He said, every thought leaves a trace. Every feeling becomes a stone on the path of children. And if hatred lives in a person's heart, that hatred does not die with him. It is passed on like an invisible debt. Imagine a woman who lived her whole life in resentment toward her husband. She leaves this life with that resentment, and her daughter suddenly begins to feel the very same heaviness, not even understanding why. She repeats the fate of her mother, even if no one was cruel to her. This is family karma, which continues until someone says, I forgive. Cayce said that we can become the last link in the chain. In one of his readings, he told a man, you can live your life differently, and then your children will be free. He emphasized, for this, no great feats are needed. Sometimes a small step is enough, to hold back from a harsh word, to forgive even if it seems impossible. But what happens if we do not do this? Then the story repeats again and again until someone learns the lesson. Families where women remain alone, as if bearing the mark of past betrayals. Dynasties where sons die in wars, carrying within them old debts of spilled blood. Cayce claimed, there are no coincidences. Everything that repeats indicates that the lesson has not yet been learned. He told the story of a mother who came to him after losing 2 children in accidents. She could not understand why her family suffered again and again. Cayce said, in your family line there is a fear that no one has overcome. This fear gathers misfortunes around you until someone rises above it. It is frightening to admit, but we often reinforce this chain ourselves. When we tell our children, it has always been this way in our family, we are as if signing a contract with the past. When we repeat, all men die young, we are as if stamping their fate. Cayce claimed, words are keys, and every word either fixes destiny or releases it. Think how many times you have heard parents tell children, you are just like your grandfather, or you are repeating your mother's mistakes. These words sound ordinary, but inside them is invisible power. This is how a program is formed, which a child then carries throughout his life. Cayce said, if you want to change the fate of the family, start with what you say and think. He claimed that even something as simple as, I thank my ancestors and release them, changes the direction of energy. For gratitude is the only feeling that dissolves resentment. That is why in ancient cultures there were rituals of remembrance, not to hold the dead nearby, but to let them go in peace. Native Americans placed stones in a circle and spoke words of gratitude. In Europe, prayers were read on the 40th day to untie the soul. The Egyptians believed that every kind word about an ancestor made the children's path easier. All this was not superstition, but a way to break the chain. Cayce warned, if a family keeps old things with hatred or sorrow, then it keeps the pain itself. Photographs, letters, belongings can be bridges, but if they are filled with love, they become protection. If they are infused with resentment, they continue to pull backward. One woman admitted that she kept at home the letters of her husband, who betrayed her. She read them again and again, cried, but could not throw them away. Cayce said, every time you open this letter, you open the wound again, you pass it to your children. She was horrified, because her daughter behaved the same way, attracting men who mistreated her. And here we see the terrible truth. As long as we hold on to pain, it becomes not only ours but also theirs. Cayce said that the most important thing is forgiveness, but he emphasized, forgiveness is not words, it is a state. You can say, I forgive, but if your heart is still boiling, nothing will change. Only when a sincere desire to let go appears, the chain breaks. He gave an example. A person can pray for years, but if inside he lives with hatred, his prayers do not reach the light. And on the other hand, one sincere sigh of forgiveness can break a knot that stretched for centuries. Perhaps that is why some families suddenly change their fate. Parents who choose not to quarrel but to support each other. Children who take a different path and do not repeat mistakes. In their lives it is as if a new window opens. And this is not a miracle, but the result of choice. And here arises the main question. What exactly are you carrying from your ancestors? Whose pain are you keeping? Whose mistakes are you repeating? Perhaps you think this is just character, habit, or coincidence. But what if it is a call to correct what was not corrected before? Cayce asserted, karma does not punish, it teaches. But if a person stubbornly refuses to learn, then the lesson becomes harsher. That is why in families, the same tragedies often repeat. It is not cruel fate, but a persistent reminder. Look here. Change this. He told the story of a man who complained about the endless illnesses of his children. Doctors shrugged, finding nothing serious, yet the children fell sick again and again. Cayce said, in your family, there is a fear of loss. This fear is passed on to the children, and that is why the illnesses return. He explained that emotions become a matrix for future events. That is why he urged people to be more attentive to their thoughts. You think only for yourself, but every thought becomes part of the river that flows further. Think. How many times have you noticed that in your family the same phrases, stories, reactions repeat? It is not just habit. It is an energetic trace. Cayce said that we inherit not only eyes or facial features, but also inner states. He claimed that the soul chooses a family, not by chance. The soul seeks the lineage where it can work off old mistakes. That is why children come to parents who can show them weak spots. There are no accidental children, said Cayce. Each comes where the lesson is not yet learned. One woman asked him, why does my daughter constantly repeat my mistakes? She married a cruel man just like I did. Cayce replied, she came so you would learn to let go of resentment. You did not break the chain. She only continues it. And this becomes clear. As long as we do not resolve our task, our children resolve it. If we do not learn to forgive, they will face situations where they must forgive. If we do not know how to love, they will seek love through pain. If we do not know how to trust, their life will be filled with betrayal. Cayce called this the circle of learning. But he also said, the circle can be broken if just one person becomes aware and changes himself. It is frightening to admit, but many families choose to suffer rather than change. People think such is our fate and resign themselves, but Cayce said, fate is not stone, it is a road. You can turn if you choose. He claimed that the power of choice belongs to every generation. If the father shouts, the son can choose silence. If the mother lives in resentment, the daughter can choose gratitude. These simple steps change the whole flow of energy. Cayce gave an example. One family suffered from alcoholism for many generations, but one day a son refused that path, chose another way of life. His children grew up in a different atmosphere, and the chain, stretched for decades, broke. He said, every step of light extinguishes darkness accumulated for centuries. But what prevents us from taking this step? Most often, habit. We are too attached to pain because it is familiar. A person clings to resentment because he fears the emptiness without it. But Cayce warned, as long as you hold on to resentment, it holds you, and it holds your children. That is why he taught. To let go means to give freedom not only to yourself, but also to your descendants. Think, how many of your habits truly belong to you? How many thoughts have you inherited without even checking whether you need them? Perhaps your fear of poverty is not your fear, but the voice of ancestors who lost everything. Perhaps your jealousy is not your trait, but an echo of the pain of a great-grandmother who was betrayed. Perhaps your illnesses are not accidents, but karmic debts that someone failed to release. And here is the main question. Are you ready to become the one who stops this chain? Cayce said, "You are not born to repeat, you are born to correct." This is the very meaning of karma, not punishment, but correction. But to correct does not mean to change the whole world. Sometimes it is enough to change a small part within yourself. He emphasized, every kind word creates a new reality. Every act of forgiveness breaks an old thread. He told the story of a man who lived his whole life afraid of losing his home. His grandfather went bankrupt, his father lost his land, and he carried this fear. In the end, he destroyed his own business. Cayce told him, "You are not afraid of losing the house, you are afraid of the memory of someone else's misfortune." And when the man realized this, his life changed. Here is the essence. We carry within ourselves the fears of others as if they were ours. But they are not ours. They came from our ancestors. And until we recognize and release them, they will control us. Cayce claimed even illnesses can be a form of karmic lesson. If in a family the same illness repeats again and again, it is not only heredity. It may be a sign that something must change in the way of thinking or living. One woman complained, "All the women in our family have weak hearts." Cayce said, "Your hearts are sick not only from illness, but from resentment that was never released. Your hearts are closed, and that is why they suffer." He often repeated, "The body is a mirror of the soul, and if the soul carries bitterness, then the body will inevitably reveal it." Think, why in some families talents are passed down, and in others only misfortunes? This is not coincidence. This is the choice of what we preserve and what we teach our children. Cayce claimed that each of us can choose to leave children fear or to leave them love. For children copy not our words but our state. If we live in anxiety, they will be anxious. If we live in joy, they will be joyful. That is why he urged simple things. Pray not from fear, but from gratitude. Speak not of pain, but of joy. Bless, do not curse. These simple steps can change family karma faster than years of suffering. But the most important, he spoke of forgiving ancestors. You think they are gone and everything is over. But as long as you hold resentment against them, you hold on to their fate as well. One woman confessed, "I hate my father, he destroyed our family." Cayce said, "You hold him close, and this hatred destroys not him, but your children." Only when she was able to say, "I release," her life changed. Cayce insisted, forgiving ancestors is the key. It does not justify their mistakes, it frees the children. And here arises a great thought. Each of us can become the point where the chain breaks. You can be the one who, for the first time in many generations, says, "Enough." That is how families begin a new path. One person who chooses forgiveness can give freedom to dozens of descendants. And now, the main question sounds like this. Are you ready to be that person? Cayce said, "You are not victims of the past. You are heirs of power, but only if you choose to use it." He claimed that each generation receives the chance to change the script. But not all use it. Some continue to live in pain. Others find the courage to say, "I choose differently." For karma is not shackles, but a mirror. It only reflects what we once sowed. But the mirror can be changed if what is inside is changed. Cayce often said, "You think fate is written, but fate is a book, and the pen is still in your hands." That is why he insisted, start small. Forgive the one you have long held in your heart. Say words of gratitude to those who gave you life, even if they were far from perfect. Refuse the habit of repeating others' mistakes only because it has always been so. Every one of your decisions becomes a new road for those who will come after you. Cayce said, "If you change one thought, life changes. If you change a life, an entire family line changes." This is the main secret. We can break the chain. No one but us will do it. Not a priest, not a teacher, not a doctor, only us. And here one must think, are you ready to be the person who will break the darkness and begin a new circle? Are you ready to give your children and grandchildren a life without repeating tragedies? Perhaps it is for this very reason that you came into this world. Friends, now tell me, have you noticed that misfortunes repeat in your family? Illnesses, losses, the same destinies? Write in the comments. Your story may become important for others. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and share this video, so that as many people as possible learn what Edgar Cayce warned about. For perhaps this knowledge one day will save someone's destiny.